continue as a public meeting, not a public hearing. For the Osborn, we will probably remain here, and I think that for the others, we'll go into the conference room. We'll announce each agenda item as it comes up. Our first hearing is 101 Theo Road, the Osborn, continued from October 14th, site plan SP 415, steep slope SS007, and tree removal TR010. Great.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Steve Rabel, with Lockwood Cullen, Burner, and Stout on behalf of the Osborn. I'll get right into it since you do have a long agenda. This is our third public hearing with the Commission. Since you last saw us in October, we provided you with some additional supplemental materials, updates to materials you've seen before, in particular revised EAF Part 1. You requested conceptual construction schedule, which does in fact show that we can and will do all sewer work closest to the school in the months of July and August to avoid any impacts during the school year. We received and provided you with a will serve letter from the Westchester Department of Environmental Facilities, which does indicate that there is sufficient capacity at the Mamaroneck Water Resource Recovery Facility. We've also received and provided you with a copy of the New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Letter, which indicates that there are no impacts to listed or eligible properties. I also checked that our site has been designated on the CRIS database as not eligible. And then finally, we updated the plans a little bit to accommodate modified interior roadway at the request of Labella and the fire department to improve emergency access. So I'm going to turn it over now to our civil engineer, Andy Tung from DTS Provident. We'll take you through a couple of these updates, and then we do have our full team here if you or the public have any questions for us. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm primarily going to run through the summary schedule that we provided in your package, by which we grouped the major construction activities and color-coded them along the left-hand side of the sheet and across the top month's timeline. Following the completion of the site plan approval process for the city of Rye, there will be what we call a pre-construction period, which is shown in gray up at the top, during which time the design team will complete its construction documents. We will get remaining permits from the county and state. We will complete our financing process. We will have pre-sales of independent living units that are proposed as are required by New York State, and we will go through a bidding and award process for the building contractors. That will take, we anticipate, somewhere between 1.5 to 2 years following site plan approval process. Then begins the colored component of the schedule, approximately 42 months as we've described previously, beginning with site preparation and site work, then moving to the center work at the center of the campus, the buildings that are proposed there, the work at the north end of the campus where that work is proposed, and then final site completion. Following that, the tying up of the site, if you will, there will be, that will have started already, approximately a year of renovation, interior renovation in the original Sterling, Osborn, and Strathcona buildings once the residents who currently live there or were living there at the time moved to the new assisted living facility. So within each of the two primary components, well, let's start with the site work. So site work begins with site mobilization, bringing the contractor setting up shop on the site, and then initially setting up stormwater management during the interim period, including erosion control and temporary sedimentation basins. That was inspected by the city before any work can actually proceed on the site. Then there will be some relocation of utilities and site work, generally around the perimeter of the campus. Also, I meant to mention there are landscaping that will occur on campus at 3 specific times during the process. The first time will be following initial site erosion control measures put up and perimeter utilities and roadways relocated. We can then do the perimeter planting, that additional supplemental planting that is proposed around the outside of the campus so that that gets a head start. Subsequent planting, and that planting will occur during planting seasons immediately following the stabilization of the 3 areas I will discuss. So first is the site work. Second is the central area, which includes 4 buildings. That will be completed initially with site work consisting of excavation for underground garages and the amenity building basement. That's included in the site work. And then work will start on those 4 buildings: the independent living building, the amenity building, the hybrid building, and cottages, all in the central area of the campus. Once those buildings are completed on the outside and that area directly around them is stabilized, final graded, planting can then occur on in that center area of the campus, again to give that a head start while other work on the campus is still going on. And of course, that will happen in the planting season immediately following that stabilization. So if the site is stabilized in February, say, that planting work will occur, say, in April or early May. The next stage, shown in the blue, is the northern area of the site where there's new independent wings being constructed either side of the main entrance and a new assisted living building. That also starts with site preparation in those areas to be constructed, as well as the excavation for the garage below the 2 independent living wings. Then the buildings, assisted living building and the independent living wings will be constructed. People will be moved, as I described, from the SOS buildings into the new assisted living unit building, and interior work will begin in those 3 buildings. That will continue for approximately 12 months. That's shown in gray at the bottom right of the page, while the final site completion is done at the north end of the campus. That includes final top coat of paving, landscaping, site furnishings, that type of stuff that will finish the essentially the outside construction on the site. So 42 months of building-related construction, an additional 12 months of interior renovation of the original buildings, all set within generally the time frame as shown here.
Thank you. This is very helpful to provide us with the information we're asking.
The only other thing I wanted to point out is that this is the illustrative site plan, and as Steve mentioned, we have added at the center here to the north of what I've called the central campus buildings, a circular walkway that is reinforced on both sides to provide emergency access to that center courtyard where there is none today. That was designed and laid out in coordination with Labella and the fire department to provide them access to the interior campus as well. We have also demonstrated to them how emergency vehicles can navigate the balance of the site as they do today.
Any questions? John?
Everything I read from the most recent materials submitted were really, really helpful, and I appreciate it. And the deliberation that you're going through with each one of these steps is much appreciated. I just wanted to say that. The fire access in particular was something I had been wondering about, and I'm glad to see that. What do you mean by on the sides reinforced walkway? What does that mean? What does that
Well,
look like?
there's a balance for emergency access between between providing structural base for the emergency vehicles, the fire engines to run on without creating a two-lane roadway in the center of the campus. So we're looking to preserve the character of an internal courtyard. So we can do that through the provision of a center band of paving and then reinforced grass essentially on both sides that has the support, that can support outriggers for a ladder truck, for instance, or other emergency vehicles. It's designed so that it can take basically a truck loading without being fully paved.
What else do you have on your?
That's all that we have. As Steve mentioned, we have adjusted or amended the full site plan set to correspond to these changes, the emergency access changes, as well as the stormwater management improvements that were proposed over the past couple of months that I explained last in the October hearing. We're waiting and looking to coordinate with the city's engineering consultants to review those and to make any changes as determined to make the plan as good as it can be.
Well, I think the board's primary concern at this point is stormwater drainage. And I don't know if you want to have any update on that, or do you want to wait until we get the information back from the valley?
I can provide a kind of an update. We did have the opportunity to receive and review Ms. Haynes' submission to the board earlier this month, where she provided an additional video of the storm event on October 30th that showed some water coming through the wall that borders Field Road on the western side of the campus. Since the improvements that were installed in 2024 that I described last time, which consisted of a new bioretention basin, reinforcement and reconstruction of the swales, and widening of the swale that took water from that area all along the western side of the campus towards the southwest basin at the corner of the basin here in the southwest corner, as well as a berm along that side on the outside of the new swale, or the reconstructed swale. Osborn staff has been, every time it rains, has been out there monitoring, self-monitoring the system to make sure that it's, one, maintained, and two, continues to work as had been designed in 2024. They also happened to be there on the same day that Ms. Haynes took the second video. So that they have shown, they were taking videos at the time and photographs, and I have some of those that I can show tonight that showed, in fact, that system was working exactly as designed. It was collecting water that was coming off the paved surfaces built in 2000 that run on the western side of the campus and directing it southwards toward that basin. That storm event was somewhere, we estimate, between a 1, possibly 2-year storm event. It was not the same type of storm event as happened in late 2022 from the first video that we saw where there was water streaming over the top of the wall, of that perimeter wall. And so the new channels and the berm and the basin all work as designed. They are flowing with clean water. There was a shot in Ms. Haynes' video of the water collecting at the corner of Osborn and Field that was muddy in some areas. We believe that came from the school site further up Osborn Road, which also drains that corner and which has been exposed now for some time. There are no exposed areas currently on the Osborn site, and all the water in that channel in the basin was running clean. So we don't believe that the muddy water came from this site. There was some water coming through the walls. Those walls, above those walls, especially at the southwest corner, at the very southwest corner, near Osborn and Thiel, that's the low point of the site. And behind that wall, uphill of the site, uphill of that wall, there is about a 50-foot vegetated strip along with the hedge between that and the ridge line that forms the west side of the basin. So there is an area of lawn that pitches towards the top of that wall, towards the street. And as Ms. Haynes points out in her letter, all water does run downhill. That's also true here in Rye and at this site. And all water that doesn't drain inward to a pond or wetland on any property in Rye, eventually, unless it's right on the coastline, right on the water, will drain to the stormwater system in the city streets. That's collected in catch basins and gutters and pipes under the in the city system, and eventually discharges to the sound. So if you have an adjoining property that slopes down towards the boundary, the sidewalk, and the street, and that there's a heavy enough rain so that the vegetated area is saturated, you will see sheet flow across that lawn or vegetated area onto the sidewalk and then into the gutter. Where there is a wall, and some of the wall, this wall has been there for as long as I know, and perhaps as long as the Osborn's been there, that perimeter wall at the end. Has been repaired at certain times. It does leak in certain areas, and a stone wall will generally, if it's dry laid, will leak through its bottom so it doesn't collapse, and if it's mortared, it will have leak holes so that the water will drain out the bottom rather than over the top. There were some, especially at the southwest corner, there was some evidence of water coming out the bottom of the wall. That water is not coming from the impervious surfaces on the site. All that water is being collected and is in the basin 50 feet to the west of that wall. That water is coming from the vegetated area behind the wall, perhaps going down behind the wall or running behind the wall where it's been patched, mortared, and exiting where it can. The weed wall at the lowest corner.
Is the retention basin lined with clay, or is it not unlined?
It is not. It's not lined because a secondary purpose is that the water during lower frequency events can infiltrate into the sides of the basin.
Recharge.
Yes. So the distance of the basin, the basin that was wet at the time of that storm is about, the water level was about 80 feet from that wall. So the water was not going through 80 feet of a berm, passing through the wall to go onto the sidewalk. It was, as it does always, there is a drain in the bottom of that basin that is always working. And the way that the detention basin works is that the basin fills up and it can only exit the drain, like a bathtub, a certain amount of water at a time. That goes directly into a pipe that connects to the nearest catch basin. So it is going, that which is not absorbed is going into the city's stormwater system. So that any water in the basin is going to find its easiest way out, which is down through the drain and connected to the basin. It's not going to the side of the wall through 80 feet of earth to get to the stone wall.
Any other questions?
Just one question.
Yeah.
You explained that there's additional paving around the courtyard,
Yes.
basically to provide fire access. Is that additional paving being taken into account in your stormwater?
Yes. The calculations were adjusted to make sure that that was counted.
I'm gonna ask the sort of citizen question.
Yes.
So when you observed from the video that came from Ms. Haynes, of the muddy water, Is that something that's typically seen during construction, or is that something that shouldn't be seen during construction? It has nothing to do with you all, but I just was curious, could you help me understand that?
The erosion control measures that are put up during, prior to construction, prior to stripping the grass cover or removing buildings, is done so in conjunction with temporary sediment basins, which are placed along the low edge of the site and in theory are sized to trap a storm of a certain intensity while the ground is bare, so that muddy water would theoretically stay on site. If the basin is not properly maintained, if the erosion control fence is not maintained, there's a gap in it, if the intensity of the storm is larger than the size of the basin that is there, you'll get muddy water flowing into the streets.
You'll note in this plan from the phasing program, stormwater basins are done first. That's why.
Thank you. I wanted to really make sure that was clear. Okay, appreciate it.
So school construction doesn't have to follow city codes.
Right.
Do whatever they want. Any other questions? Anything else that you want to put forward?
No.
Thank you. Anyone in the public wish to speak on this application? Hang on a second. He had his hand up first.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Saul Hurwitz. My wife Nina and I have lived in Rye for 62 years. I served for 6 years on the Board of Education, and that experience has given me a unique insight into how effectively Rye is serving its young people. Our schools are among the best in the nation. I believe that Rye has shown a similar concern for serving the elderly, and the premier institution for pursuing that goal has been the Osborn. Established in 1908, the Osborn is enshrined in Rye's proud history, and it has responded over the years to the changing needs of Rye's senior population with great foresight and imagination. It has long ago earned a place among Rye's premier institutions. The Rye Free Reading Room, the Rye Y, the Rye Arts Center, SPRY, and many others as a community resource of incomparable value. The Osborn is now facing a new challenge. The surging growth in the elderly population demands not only an upgrading and modernizing of its outworn facilities and the construction of new ones, but in order to maintain its competitive edge in the marketplace, a complete reimagination of the ways it is serving its senior population. I've attended several of your meetings, and what has impressed me is the way that Matt Anderson, Osborn CEO, and his team have anticipated the challenges that such a massive project entails and have responded forthrightly and factually to your questions and concerns. On a personal note, I am 93 years old. My wife Nina is 89, and for nearly 2 years has been a resident in the Osborn's Hope Center for Memory Care. She is thriving there. I visit often, and I have observed firsthand the many ways that the dedicated Osborn staff is serving its residents, and they are doing so with a sense of caring and compassion. Yes, Nina is thriving at the Osborn, but she can only continue to thrive if the Osborn continues to thrive. From everything I have seen and heard and read, the Osborn has reached an inflection point. The status quo is no longer an option. I therefore urge your full support of the Osborn's proposal for change. It will meet the needs of our elderly population for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman and ranking members of the Planning Commission, my name is Dr. Mary Ann Haynes, and I represent a large group of concerned residents of Rye. We come before you this evening not to dispute what the residents of the Osborn want or need, nor the plans that have been presented to achieve those goals. We come before you regarding our environmental concerns and to ensure that the secret process is carried out correctly so as to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the entire community, and so that when this proposed project ultimately proceeds, we can all be confident in its success. By now, you will have received an email that outlines our concerns regarding parts 1 and 2 of the EAF. We would ask that you consider them when you adjourn to your work session later this evening. I've actually taken the liberty of printing a copy for each of you, in case you haven't had a chance to check your email. One of the benefits of having the secret process done at the local level is that many of the nuances of a particular proposal that may not be captured by a standard form can be considered. Ultimately, due to the size and duration of this project, our concerns have been and remain flooding, environmental impact on the children of the Osborn School, traffic and safety, and again, flooding. In fact, last weekend, I happened upon an elderly neighbor when I was out for a walk, and she had taken it upon herself to get down on her hands and knees and clean the city storm drains on Park Avenue because she didn't want to bother DPW, and she was trying to avoid flooding for the upcoming rain in her neighbors' homes. At the October hearing, the Osborn's representatives went to great lengths to describe the work that was done in 2024 to repair a purported swale failure in 2022 and to improve the Osborn stormwater management. By now, I hope you've seen the video that Mr. Tung was referring to from October 30th when it rained. It clearly shows that the Osborn stormwater in fact is not managed. Whether that water was coming from the Osborn property directly or from the new buildings at the school, they are not going anywhere. They all have to be taken into consideration because they all sit atop that hill. I'm going to show the video now because I think it's important for us all to see it together and important for the people here in the public who have not yet seen it. This was taken on October 30th during rain.
Where is this location?
This is the driveway on Thiel Road from the Osborn, not their main driveway, the next one down.
Secondary.
Yeah. So the water coming over the retaining wall into Thiel, water flowing down Thiel, water coming under the wall at the southwest corner. This was actually after the rain had almost stopped. It's still pouring out from under the wall, onto the sidewalks, overwhelming the storm drains, into Osborn Road, and ultimately Coolidge Avenue, and into my garage.
Where's that?
That's the corner of Coolidge and Osborn. That car is on Osborn Road, making a left-hand turn onto Coolidge Avenue.
Okay.
Show it again?
Yeah, that part I didn't, because the water was flowing from a different direction, I wanted to understand why it was flowing from a different direction.
Again, this is coming off the secondary driveway of the Osborn onto Thiel Road. See Con Edison building and parking lot there across the road. This is over the wall of the Osborn onto Thiel Road. Flowing down Thiel Road towards Osborn. This is the southwest corner, nearest the retention pond. And I was only there for a few minutes, and it had been raining for hours.
This is about to be the part that I
So that's looking from the corner of Thiel out into Osborn Road. We've got the school up and then traveling the direction of that vehicle. This is standing at the corner of Coolidge and Osborn here to your right.
So that's taken,
That's what I want to say.
That's flowing down Coolidge Avenue.
and that's taken before the first video.
It's taken before the water coming under the wall, yes.
Before, yeah, so that was earlier in the rain event. The first part of it was later in the rain event.
No, only the portion where it was coming under the wall. I went back out a second time, and that footage was clearer on my phone, which is why I ultimately used that footage.
But the end was earlier in the storm.
Correct, in the rain.
I remember that dark day, it was, because we all worried now, it was a very unsettling day. I was out and I had to be somewhere, and I was like, I forget where it was, that I had to drive fairly far, I think it was down by Bowman Avenue, and I was like, do I want to be on this road, where do I want to go? This is just the reality of our life, and so I understand.
Yes, this is the reality of our
There
life.
was sheet water everywhere, yep.
But it wasn't a extreme weather event. It wasn't a hurricane, it was rain.
No, but 2 people died in it, so.
Correct.
It's
But
very-
you people could die on any day on a
But
highway.
what demonstrates to me is how much water is coming off the Osborn School. So all that groundwater is from Osborn School.
Perhaps, but I don't have a study to prove that.
Well, I visited it afterwards, and it's clear that they had no erosion control in place.
That may be the case, but they're not going anywhere. Those buildings will remain,
Yes.
and the impermeable surface will remain. They sit on the same hilltop that the Osborn will sit.
So I hope you're having the same conversation with the school.
Well, I would like to, but their meeting is also this evening at the same time, so I'm here and not there. So again, our concerns remain the same, and I'd like to add these signatures to our petition. I'm now up to 148 and counting. We petition the Planning Commission to issue a positive declaration under SECRA and thereby require the Osborn to complete an EIS with the requisite community input. Thank you.
Christian, question for you, and I apologize if I don't know exactly. What's the storm water drainage issue on Osborn? What's the conversation that's happening within our civil engineering department? I'm just sort of trying to make sure I understand what that is about. Is there anything?
If I start speaking to the city engineer, he'll be very upset.
Okay.
So, I can't really respond to that, but
Okay,
it's a street that's been there a long time, and it starts at the top of Boston Post Road, and it goes down, and, has storm drains in there, but it's an older system, obviously.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak on this application? Why don't you sit down, because the gentleman behind you got up first, that's what happened. Trying to be fair.
Thank you. My name is Barry Coe. My wife and I are residents of the Osborn. We moved to the Osborn after living in Maryland for 46 years. We actually looked at about 13 senior communities in the area, and we selected the Osborn for a variety of reasons, one of which was how impressed we were with its management and the way in which it runs the operation, the care that it gives to the facility, and the care that it gives to the residents. And since moving in, we have not been disappointed in that. So I urge you to take that into consideration. You know that the Osborn management will give great care to this renovation and to this improvement of the property. And as a resident, we are very happy with the way we're served there, but these improvements will make the life of us seniors even more enjoyable for us. So we urge you to give that consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. What I have to say is remarkable.
Can you state your name?
Alfonso, Peter Hewitt. I want to give you a rather newer resident of the Osborn, a perspective from inside and how it reacts to me. We took up, my wife and I, we took up residence 2 years ago. After 40 years in Westport, Connecticut, sorry, that's where we were, and we chose the Osborn for its reputation. And it was not simply the reputation we can all read, and there's a great deal of it, from all sorts of people who do the research, and it's good. It's really good, both in terms of looking at the Northeast and even wider. But we were fortunate because our daughter lived in Rye for 30 years. Brought up 3 children there, schooled them, and of course during that time, we in Westport, just down the road, before I-95 became impossible. And we met with her, many friends and many people in Rye, and became extremely attached to Rye and to the people that we were meeting. And one of the common factors of these people, whenever the subject arose, was to praise the Osborn. So it was in the back of our mind for a long time. We actually did make 1 or 2 visits, and there were open days for people from the outside, and we spoke to a significant number of people who had direct experience of the Osborn, probably through a member of the family in some way.
Sir, I'm sorry, but we have a long agenda, so if you could just really state, are you in support? Why you're in support? If you have additional.
Whatever you want to know. Okay. Can I tell you why? You don't have time for that?
Yeah, you can
Okay,
say why.
let me get to that. Following my colleague there, it's very clear if you're a resident, and if I've been 60 years in business, if you are looking at how things are run, how institutions are run, it becomes an instinct after you've been so many years doing it. And I can say that the Osborn's leadership and board are extremely impressive, and they have an ideal culture, which is they listen and they communicate and they involve. So all the way through the subject that we're faced with. The residents have been involved. They've been able to participate, they have participated, and from time to time, their views have been taken on board and used. This issue was a wonderful time to see this in operation. And it was astonishing how many residents attending regular meetings, speaking with the architects, speaking with the staff, very much. And I would like to say that I have, from everything I've seen, I have very great confidence that the concerns that have been expressed by some members of the Rye community will absolutely be dealt with. That the view of everybody in the club is that they must be dealt with, and they will be dealt with. And I say that with as much confidence as I can muster. So I would finally say that the Osborn is part of the Rye community, and they're proud of it.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on the application? I'll do this gentleman first and we'll go in the back.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for listening to me. My name is Alan Murray. I'm a resident of the Osborn. I came to the Osborn after my wife passed away following a considerable illness, and we had a COVID shutdown and so on. And after she passed away, I said, I can't continue on in this big house all by myself, so I'll find a nice place that they go and they can take care of me. And that was the Osborn. But what I hadn't anticipated when I got to the Osborn was that suddenly there was a whole new life in front of me. They're all people my age that have become friends. There are activities and the opportunity to learn new things, and to, even in my 90s, I feel that, I'm rejuvenated. So I'd like to see this opportunity extended to more people, and the expansion of the Osborn will accomplish that. And among the people that I most admire are the staff of the Osborn. And they gave us an ample opportunity to input in what we wanted out of the renovations. A new activity center, a space that we could meet in that would be big enough to handle everybody and much closer to the major buildings in independent living than we are now. My own personal opinion was a pickleball court, but I don't know about that's going to happen or not. I will say, I was on the planning board in the unincorporated town of Mamaroneck for a number of years, and I appreciate the difficult decisions that you have to arrive at. But as I look at it, so much of the work is contained within the big property of the Osborn. That it's something that should have, it seems to me, minimal impact on the areas surrounding it. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. No, sorry, the woman second row.
Good evening, everybody. I'm a resident of Osborn, but I'm not.
Sorry, your name?
Well, I'm not a resident of Osborn, but
I still need to know your name.
so my name is Christine Gauthier, and I live on the Coolidge. So I just wanted to, I'm going to try to be very short. I'm not a big speaker, but I just like to emphasize that I understand in this world everybody is looking for what is good for them, and it is very possible that I've been in Rye for 40 years. I moved from France to Rye despite my place. So I'm not, thinking about going anywhere. Of course, you know, I will have to move, and it will be very easy for me to move from Coolidge to Osborn, and I hear how wonderful place it is, and I think it is, but I would not want anything to be done, you know, to the detriment of people who live also in Rye and in the neighborhood. So I would agree with the people who live around there and who are concerned about the flooding. It's a big concern, and I can believe whatever, you know, anybody tell me, but I really would like to have a proof of, you know, the security of our land. This is what I'm asking to you, just to look upon, because we need some proof, and we need to be certain that we're not going to flooding, you know, in the next years. I really thank you very much for hearing from me, and for
Thank you.
everybody else. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Paul Hicks. I was born, well, actually I was born in New York City, but I was raised in Rye, attended Rye schools, went away to college and law school, and went out to Denver, married, came back to Rye with my wife, raised our children in Rye schools. Anyway, I have a lot of Rye in my blood. And I worked for 30 plus years at JP Morgan. When I retired, I decided to do some writing. I've written 4 books, one about a native or semi-native of Rye, named John Parsons, but mainly I started writing columns for the Rye Record, with Robin as my editor. And so I've been writing columns about local history of Rye and environs for 30 years, 25. Anyway, if you haven't had the pleasure, I invite you to read, coincidentally, had nothing to do, just coincidentally with the timing of this, I've written a 2-part column on the history called The Evolution of the Osborn. The first part was in the last issue of the Rye Record, and the second part, second of 2, will be in the next issue. So I have a perspective on the evolution of the Osborn from its start officially in 1908, but it really began in the 1890s with Miriam Osborn as the benefactress, guided by a magnificent lawyer named John Sterling. And he probably set the standard of excellence for the management of the Osborn. Sterling was one of the founders of the great, still going law firm of Sherman and Sterling. He was a lifetime bachelor. He acquired unbelievable amounts of land, both on the top of Thiel Hill, which is really where the Osborn is located, and neighboring places. Anyway, my perspective is that over its existence, well dated from 1908 to today, it has had a succession of dedicated, thoughtful, and wise board leadership. In in the 1970s, as you read in my first column, the Osborn phase, well, it started as
Mr. Hicks,
and,
Mr. Hicks, I'm sorry.
yeah,
We really have a long agenda, so if you
Oh,
address
sorry.
the point to the proposal that's on the table.
all right. Well, my point is that there's a history and tradition of intelligent, excellent management. It has meant that Rye City, Rye School District, through a judgment and a lawsuit, has received millions of dollars of tax revenue, started in the lawsuit raised by the city of Rye and joined by, anyway, so you have tremendous financial benefit, you have great and foreseeing management, and that's my case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this application? Okay, I have a motion, I think, we should keep the hearing open.
I'll make that motion.
Second. There's a motion and second to keep the hearing open. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our second hearing this evening is 83 Brevard.
Do you want to explain the work session?
Yeah, we'll be in work session for the Osborn when we're finished with our four hearings. 83 Brevard, wetland permit WP 571, tree removal TR 014.
Chairman, members of the planning board, David Lee here on behalf of the applicant for 83 Resort Lane. This application is a renovation and expansion of an existing home adjacent to Long Island Sound. The property is located in the FEMA X zone. Part of our application is we're removing approximately a dozen trees and replanting 6 new trees on the property. At the last meeting we had, was recommended by the board.
You need to get closer or speak up.
The last meeting was recommended by the board to put all the utilities and drainage, et cetera, in the new driveway area, which Rick can speak to. It has been done. Other than that, the plan application is the same application that we reviewed at the last meeting.
Want to review that?
As David described, we moved the stormwater utilities to kind of run along the driveway that you were disturbing anyway, put the drainage in there, it's all within the easement. And you can see we maintain the separation between the stormwater and the sanitary, 10 feet minimum. I thought about putting the sanitary running through the road, but again, I wanted to maintain that separation. And even with that separation, it's already still within the established easement. So none of the utilities are outside of the established easement, the existing easement right now. We added a water quality unit downstream of the runoff from the house and the driveway portion. A Caltech water quality unit, which has a filter and filters out any pollutants from the runoff before it's eventually conveyed into the tidal marsh. There are on the survey, but going back to our sidewalk, I identified 2 existing inlets that empty into that wetland that we're proposing to connect into. And that is really it. Then we have the 6-inch drawdown from the pool as well, connected into that system. That'll eventually, after you dechlorinate, obviously, will be conveyed into that wetland.
And the pool is outside of the wetland section?
The pool itself, there's a portion of the patio in there, but the pool itself is outside of the setback.
Anyone have questions for the applicant? Anyone in the public wish to speak on this application? Do that. A motion to close the hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
The motion has been seconded to close the hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Our third public hearing this evening is Pine Island Road Improvements, Wetland Permit WP 571.
Good evening. For the record, Leo Napier, law firm of Parker Sprout and Pearlstein. On behalf of the applicants, so the applicants here are 14 property owners that reside on Island Road. The proposal is to widen portions of Island Road to try to get it to accommodate two-way traffic, along with some curbing and stormwater improvements. And then there is portions of that are within the 100-foot wetland buffer coming off of the Long Island Sound. There are landscape and beautification components to this as well at the entrance coming off of Forest Avenue. Those are outside the wetland buffer. However, we're showing you the complete picture.
Okay, so, as we discussed last time, there's no homeowners association, but we're gonna need to have some sort of maintenance agreement with somebody. Is there any progress on that?
Yes, and I did provide a draft earlier today to Christian. The lead applicant is Dennis McGill, the owner of One Pine Island Road. He's willing to shoulder that responsibility until such time as we're able to get a more detailed easement on the entire neighborhood.
Has Kristen seen that?
No.
We'll discuss that and that'll be something that we'll have to get through.
No problem. It is style off of other templates we've used in the state regs.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant? Anyone in the public wish to speak on this application?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
The motion has been seconded to close the hearing. All in favor? Our third public hearing is 86 Maple Avenue, wetland permit WP 575.
Good evening, Alan Phillips from ALP Engineering. Just briefly go through what this project entails. The plans for the development on the house on this property included a cantilever wood deck. Rear of the house, this property is subject to review by the building department in 2025, and cannot require a wetland permit. Because the wood deck encroached 4 feet into the wetland buffer, the aerial encroachment was actually 37 square feet. When you take a look at the deck, and the fact that it's semi-pervious, the actual approach would have been 19 square feet. What's being proposed in its place, instead of a 4-foot wide deck, is one that extends 12 feet into the backyard. It would be supported by a total of 6 piers in the ground within the wetland buffer. And it would, as I say, extend 12 feet into from the rear of the house. The encroachment would increase from 19 square feet to 114 square feet. Mitigation is proposed in the northeast corner of the property. It will cover 230 square feet, and the ratio of mitigation to encroachment will be about 2.4 to 1. And that's what's being proposed. Essentially, they say the replacement of a 4-foot deck with a 12-foot deck.
Have there been any changes to the plan since the last time you signed?
No, not at all.
Any questions for the applicant? Does anyone in the public wish to speak on this application?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. The motion has been seconded to close the hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will now go to work session. It'll be a public meeting, not a public hearing. First item on the agenda will be 101 Field Road, the Osborn. You need to use photographs. I do. Can you see those? You certainly.
So, let me also take a step back to here. This site showed in the last public hearing in orange of the improvements that were done in 2022 to rectify the situation where during a heavy storm event, I'm sure they were done in 2024, a heavy storm event during the latter part of 2022, there was water that sheeted over the wall that borders the western side of the Osborn, somewhere in the center of the site here, I believe. And in order to do that, the components of that were a new retention basin just off the circle that took water from the paved surface of the entry circle, and then a series of improvements to the channels and swales that run along the west side and eventually discharge to the basin at the southwest corner. That included an additional berm located here to further protect that swale should it rise to the top from flowing over the wall as it did in 2022. So, as I mentioned, the Osborn, and here's it in, I'm sorry, the orientation is flipped, but the old roof is at the bottom, is at the bottom. Here's the basin over on the right side. Here are the reinforced swales, and here's that berm to protect the channels as they go towards the detention basin from flowing to the west. And so the Osborn staff has been, since the installation of those measures, has been going out during every storm of a certain size to observe what was happening, make sure the channels are clear, and to see that they are working. And here you can see, again, working from the bottom right up to the basin on the top. Here's the bottom retention basin, which is filling up off the side. This is all interior of the site, coming off the circular entry drive, and then the widened swales that are going down the west side of campus, met with other swales and channels. There's a series of discharges to the swale system that come off the various roads that were constructed during the Project 2000. And then discharging them to the basin. Here at the bottom, you can see the basin. You can't see the water level. It was actually fairly low. This is the October 30th storm event, and that water, as I mentioned, is running clear. Now, we did not go up to the Osborn school site on that day, but subsequent, this is a week later. This is the Osborn school site as it sits adjoining to Osborn Road, and you can see there's not a lot of protection between the exposed dirt and the sidewalk and the curb. And we suspect that that's where most of the muddy water. I did mention that, there is an area. So the Dr. Haynes' video where it showed water coming out of the bottom of the wall, that was here near the corner. This is the low point of the site. And you can see there's an area above that wall on the outside of the berm that forms the side of the basin that is grassed and has a hedge on top. So that water was sheeting off that vegetated area when it became saturated. It went behind the wall and found an exit at the bottom of the wall, either through old mortar or because those loopholes were designed as stone walls are designed to allow water to pass through them rather than to overtop to affect the structure of the wall. There is an opportunity, we believe, because of the distance and of that grass area, to intercept some of that grass area at the top of the wall with another slab, further supplemental measure that would reduce the amount of water that is getting to the wall and going down and exiting the bottom at the sidewalk. That water would be caught in the pipe and directed back into the basin, and then held in the basin and treated like the other stormwater on the site along the western side. So that is something that, upon analysis and studying this, we believe that in this area at the southwest corner, where potentially water is collecting along the whole back of the wall, where it has been repaired, and there are no weep holes. I think if it had weep holes all along the length of the wall, you wouldn't really see the volume that was coming out at the very bottom. So rather than doing that, what we think we can do is to add a swale at the corner, say that it wraps around the corner, and that collects the water that's coming off that vegetated surface, not coming from the stormwater management system, but pipe that back to the stormwater system so that it does not contribute to additional surface flow to that corner, which is the low point of Osborn.
But you have to assume there might be trees in that area?
Not really. I think we can work around because there's a hedge on top of the wall. So we might have to either remove the hedge, which I don't think would be preferred because it does provide screening from, there's a stone wall and a hedge, which means that at the corner of Field and Osborn, you really don't see into the campus at all because it's about a combination of 5 or 6 feet. We could put this swale right behind the hedge, or if we would remove the hedge, I think we'd look first to do it behind the hedge to capture most of the water that was coming off the hedge.
You will advise on that?
Yes. But that's something that we would look at. We anticipate that we will be, or we would like to get together with LaBelle as they complete their review of the entire stormwater system and make sure that there's something that we haven't missed. They could suggest, our goal is
I've spoken with Labella, I forwarded the email, to make them aware of this pre-existing condition, to understand that context of their design review, so they're fully aware of this, and we'll be reviewing that question as well, in addition to reviewing the overall drainage program.
And they understand we're gonna be scrutinizing it.
They understand you're gonna be scrutinizing this, so, they're specifically tasked with looking at that in addition.
So we will essentially, you will essentially be adding more water to the retention basin, so
Yes.
you'll update the analysis of whether or not there's sufficient capacity? And Labella will do the same thing.
Correct.
Andy, while you have this image up, would you mind just the historic clay wooden frame or conveyance that's gonna be carrying, that already is carrying water along Field Road, that's being, that capacity is being increased by 50%, you will 12-inch pipe, right?
I'm not sure.
It was in the most recent submission. I was just wondering that, can you just trace that line? Like where that 8-incher initiates and whether or not it makes it all the way to the basin?
I think you were talking about the 8-inch line in Osborn Road.
That's not one that's adjacent to the.
No, that's a sanitary line.
That's
That's sanitary.
That's sanitary. Well, I know there's been work that has already been on a long deal there.
On the plans, like you can see, it's actually shown the contours.
So as you recall, Field Road was improved, you may recall. Prior to that, it had no curbs, it had no drainage system. It was a compromised roadway because it needed improvement and it was a heavy lift financially, so it finally got done. So there's storm drains and curbs and, pavement was all done, I don't know,
2008.
2008, okay. So prior to that, it was just running off, and we had very sizable sort of ruts on the side of the roadway, just running, the runoff.
Christian, just because people always want to understand, and you're so good at explaining. So the sewer line is gonna be done in the summer months when school is out.
Correct.
How do you think about that in relationship to stormwater running over? Like, how do they interact with each other? And what is the thing that makes people most worried? Do they play a role together or not?
They can, but, those connections will be worked out. I mean, there's already a sewer line there, so the excavation is relatively easy. It's not like there is a pipe there, so somebody excavated at one point to put it in. So it just needs to be sized up. So whatever interferences, utilities.
So what you're referring to is the interference between one utility and another?
No, it's more about understanding the relationship between stormwater and, people always worry about doo-doo in their basements, I'm just being blunt.
Well, I mean, I think what you're getting is that our sanitary pipes used to overflow frequently, and so they would interact, but ideally, if we have a new sanitary pipe, it's not going to be,
So that,
it won't
like,
have the flaws in the
I'm
system that will lead it to overflow into the
I mean, this is a big deal.
sewer.
This
So-
is a good thing that we're doing.
Well, yes, so there's the capacity issue, and that's going to be rectified and mitigated by increasing the size of the pipe.
Right.
There's also the transfer of sewage from, we'll call it the Rye Gardens, Sound Drive neighborhood, that will occur and go this way. But the sewer shed that drains into the Osborn pipe is relatively small. It doesn't include that much of the Glen Oaks neighborhood. But that being said, there's a 3-to-1 reduction in inflow and infiltration for the increase in flow that is generated by this. There'll be we have calculation for that, so.
That's a county requirement.
It's not a requirement, it's a recommendation, where we can reduce I&I, like we've done. The city relined a good portion of Rye Gardens, meaning they put liners in the pipes and, eliminated, almost a large percentage of that neighborhood. There's a similar project proposed, for the Glen Oaks neighborhood. That's where those funds will be applied to that neighborhood. So the I&I planned for that neighborhood. We'll use the funds from the Osborn's 3-to-1 contribution to apply towards that project.
Very helpful, thank you.
So, but this sewer line doesn't generally flow into that neighborhood, it doesn't. It basically serves the Osborn School, and houses sort of bordering Osborn Road. It doesn't go down Coolidge, and that goes to a different system. So the system isn't connected to that neighborhood. So there's your issue of backups and so forth, that really has to do with capacity, but it's not in that neighborhood.
Thank you.
I just want to go down a couple things here. So, we have a letter, a draft, opinions that gave me on the stormwater. Has Kristen had a chance to review that? So that will need to be legal. The construction schedule, I think, does anyone have any further questions on that construction
No.
schedule?
Let me just say on the stormwater agreement, that's something required by the city code. The city code, that's not something that's a relatively new phenomenon, the requirement that there be maintenance and this agreement that you've seen that's submitted in part of the public record, those are required for systems of this scale. It does give the city much greater enforcement capability if maintenance practices aren't being adhered to or if the system isn't performing. That's not something that existed, say, 25 years ago, in the way it does now.
But can some of the pre-existing conditions be under that umbrella?
I would,
Yes, because the whole stormwater system is being presented by you.
right.
So it's part of the whole system.
We have a letter from Westchester County Department of Environmental Facilities stating that there's capacity, which we asked for, thank you for that. There's a letter from New York State Parks, Recreation, and Park Preservation, that closes that issue out. We have a couple of letters on those comments. And they still have more to come.
Yes, they have to.
We need further look out. We have a letter from Wayne Capilli on the trees, so Bob Goldie, can you come up a second? And just, you, Mr. Capilli says that he walked with you. Have you had a chance to read the report?
I have.
And do you have any comments to it?
No, as I mentioned in my response to the Osborn, basically suggestions are all best practice items, most of which we already have in our standard office specifications.
Most of which or all? We would like you to follow all these recommendations.
No, I'm sorry, we will follow all. He has a couple of new ones that I think are very, very pointed and very good, so glad to incorporate those into our standard specifications.
Okay, so the 6 recommendations will be incorporated.
Absolutely.
So, and Nick, do you mean the 12 or the 10 recommendations, because he goes, there's 6
Yeah, the
recommendations on tree
second-
protection, but then there are 12, 10 recommendations.
Yeah, all the recommendations.
16.
Yeah.
All. You're right. And then into the last issue comes down to the EAF. Nick, we wanted to hold off discussion of the EAF until we have further comments from the developer and further issues, particularly relative to stormwater. So we'll do that at the December meeting. Anyone have anything else they want to report? We can also have a chance then to review the comments from the same.
Just because I like to say things like this is a really good report that you really put. The soil recommendation, I just thought that we need to move on, we're busy, but I think it's important for the public to know that recommendation 6 of the 16, 12, they're just some really, really thoughtfully, this was really done. Thank you, City Planning and Building Department, they made that happen because
It is there, yes, when you first started helping council with the tree law.
Okay. So we'll now move to the conference room, and the first item on the agenda will be 8054.